Hello. Do you remember the first time you went to school or nursery? When I went, there were no playgroups or nurseries, so that first day was the first time I had been in the company of children and adults I didn't know and away from my mum. I was very apprehensive. I was okay as long as things were ordered in the classroom and everyone was sitting in their seats and we were told exactly what to do. When it came to playtime, I was terrified. All these children, especially boys, running about and shouting. It was only P1 and P2, but it was far more than I could handle. However, a teacher found me cowering in the classroom and rescued me, and I survived the experience. When my younger son went to playgroup, he was not at all keen. To get to the house, which was in the country and well recommended, you had to take the child to the taxi at the foot of our hill. And 4 or 5 kids were squeezed in the back seat, while the helper sat beside the driver. No rules about car seats then. Andy was determined he wasn't going, and he would fight to the last minute when he was shoved in bodily and the door locked, and off they would go, his wee piteous face looking out at me. I used to feel awful, but I knew that if I gave in, we would have to go through it all again when he went to school, and he would have to do it. Of course, I phoned in a wee while to see if he was all right, and I discovered that he would sit in a corner and cry until he got his milk and biscuits, and then he would be absolutely fine. And he was always smiling when he came back and eager to tell me what he had done. The kindness of the leaders helped him to settle down. There are lots of times in our lives when we dread a new experience, our first job, or having a baby, a procedure at the hospital, or even a visit to the dentist. Usually there's someone who takes us under their wing and makes things easy for us, so we get through the experience. But how would you feel if the experience you were dreading was being thrown into a fiery furnace or a lion's den? Do you remember who both these things happened to? Daniel and his Jewish friends. What caused such extreme situations? The fiery furnace was the result of the Jewish men refusing to bow down to a huge golden statue that Nebuchadnezzar had made. And the second was when King Darius said that everyone was only to worship him for 30 days, which they also ignored. I can't imagine what it would have been like to face either of these situations. At least the furnace was so hot that death would be almost instantaneous. But I don't fancy one bit being torn to pieces by a lion. What happened? In both cases, God sent a helper to protect the faithful men. To everyone's amazement, they came out totally unscathed. Now, these stories were written down many years after they actually happened, so we cannot be sure how accurate they are as fact. But they illustrate the complete belief that God can protect us in any situation if you're faithful to him. Why am I telling you these stories today? Well, because my intention to do a series on characters in the New Testament hit a bit of a barrier. I couldn't decide which one to do next, and as I sat seeking guidance, Daniel came to mind. As always, when something doesn't fit my plan, I ignored it. But nothing else came. And again, as I thought, it was Daniel. Now, a few days ago, when I was looking for a book on characters in the Old Testament, I couldn't find it. So off I went with a kind of bargain in my head. I probably won't be able to find it, so I'll do look. Who is a major character in the New Testament? I found it. So Daniel it had to be. I realised that same day I was in a conversation which spoke of the dangers of going even into the hairdressers. As I write this, we have just been told that we will soon be able to do things like that and other things which involve going into public spaces with other people. And yesterday I was at a webinar which spoke of people's fears and uncertainties. As we come out of lockdown, some of us have not been in a supermarket for 3 months. Many have not been to a surgery or hospital, a dentist or chiropodist or a hairdresser. Can we be sure these places are safe? Will it be safe for our children to go into school? When should we invite people back into church or go to a restaurant or cinema? We're being given permission, even urged to start getting back to normal. But how will we feel when we try? Will we go through a whole series of worries every time we go somewhere new? I believe what God is saying to us is that He can protect us. He can be with us as the angels were with Daniel and his companions, as He looked after Andy when I prayed that he would settle down. Does it seem crazy to pray before you go to the hairdresser or to church? Maybe. But we have a God who wants to look after us. So if you're going into a situation you haven't been in for a while, then pray before you go. Pray for others you know who are doing the same thing. And go, relying on the protection of your God and without fear, just as Daniel and his companions did. If they can face the fire and the lions, you can face the hairdresser or the dentist. Let's pray. Lord, there are many situations just now that cause us anxiety. Thank you for that reminder that you can and will protect us. Help us to find out our way back to normality by walking alongside you and trusting in your care. Amen. Enjoy your visit to the hairdresser or wherever. Bye-bye.